with just 3 ships so far and a nuclear-capable sub arriving in Cuba yesterday, docking in Havana today after passing by the U.S. this week. And just like the Cuban Missile Crisis, we are responding with our own Navy after a Russian ship just casually floated 30 miles off the coast of Florida. They are banking on Joe Biden not doing anything about this. And they're just playing games. But I'll bet you $50 that the day Trump gets inaugurated, those ships are steaming back across the ocean to get back to Russia. I'm just saying. Republican Congressman Brandon Williams is here. He's former U.S. Navy submariner. All right, sir, so I want to get 2 sides of your thought process here, your submariner idea and your congressman idea. So let's go submariner first. Let's say you're on a ship tasked with monitoring our international boundary right there off the coast of Florida, and you're in a potential war game scenario with a Russian sub. What's going through your head?
Well, you don't want to lose track of them. The key of the Cold War, as we all remember, was the ability to track enemy submarines, to know where they were, particularly ones that were missile capable, very much like the one that is pulling into Cuba. And, obviously, these are some of the most closely guarded secrets of our nation. But without any operational knowledge, I would bet really good money that they've got a Virginia class on their tail.
Yeah. So let's talk congressman oversight now. Obviously, you spend a significant amount of time looking at the money, the nearly $1 trillion we give to our DOD. We've seen this woke stuff coming out of it. Are we prepared and ready? And do we have the ability to posture back should we need to right now?
Well, that's a 2-part question. Is our military ready? I would say yes. Do we have the capability? We do. We could certainly sweep the ocean of any Russian threat. I almost said Soviet because that's my era. So I have no doubt about that. But the real problem is leadership. You have to have the credibility that your threat is real in order to deter your enemies. And you see President Putin pulled out of the nuclear START agreements last year, or announced that he was. And just in today's national interest publication, they're reporting that he is saying that he is rehearsing for tactical nuclear weapon use because what he calls Western threats. We have to take these things seriously. There's a theory in nuclear deterrence that you can escalate to de-escalate. So in other words, you might do something like as radical as a tactical nuclear weapon in order to deter any response. It's a very risky gamble, but Putin's in the business of taking risks. And again, I don't suspect that he's stupid enough to do that, but these are dangerous times.
Yeah, and there's rumors too. Like, look, I actually went to Ukraine at the beginning of this war to see what was up, and a lot of their military equipment is dated back to the 80s. They're not exactly on the forefront of technology over there, but I'm still really worried about the fact that these guys might be pulling nuclear subs into our ports or near our ports in Florida. So when we kind of unpack this a little bit, at what point does it become a firing thing? Because I warned when the Ukraine thing broke out, I said, be very careful, America. Don't get too involved in this, because if you do, you're going to be considered a threat too. And now we got this.
Well, look, having missiles in or around Cuba is like a knife at the throat of the United States. Mm-hmm. The cruise missiles that are reported to be on this submarine and this frigate have a range of about 1,000 nautical miles. So from Cuban waters, they can reach Washington, D.C., Nashville, Atlanta, of course, Miami, Tampa, Orlando, even Houston, Texas. That's a very real threat. That's why John F. Kennedy mobilized my father-in-law in 1962 as an Army second lieutenant to rush down to Florida in the wake of the Cuban Missile Crisis. My father-in-law was among the Army officers that was mobilized for that, and then went on to serve in Vietnam. But so look, this is familiar. There's a reason that we need to take much more aggressive stance against Cuba, which the Biden administration and the Obama administration have refused to do. And we got to stand up to this kind of tyranny, and particularly on our back door.
Sure.
This is unacceptable.
Yeah, no, it is. And it gets there because of a weak leader. So, Congressman Brandon Williams, we appreciate you coming on very much, sir.
You bet. Take care.
All right.